What do you hope to accomplish upon your election?
That's a big question. I have a huge agenda. I have at home, I have a line of paper with all my checklist of things that I'd like to do. But number one, I would say, is gun legislation.
This is Democratic Visions. Here's Tim O'Brien.
Our guest is Heather Edelson. Heather is the endorsed candidate for House Seat 49A, which is Edina. Truly rooted in the community, Heather has served on any number of boards and commissions as a leader in the city of Edina, and we welcome your opportunity to meet with us. Heather, good to see you.
Good to see you, Tim.
Now, Heather, tell us right off the bat, what should we know about you as a candidate?
You know, I am, as you said, I am a community member that cares deeply about Edina. I'm also a mom, and I talk a lot about that throughout my campaign because the state of Minnesota needs people that are going to hold our state and our legislators accountable. And as a parent, I feel very deeply concerned about what's happening. So I am somebody that loves Edina. I'm somebody that wants accountability and somebody that wants stable government that's driven by values.
So why have you decided to focus on serving in the legislature?
You know, my life's journey has really been a huge part of why I've decided to run for the state office. I grew up very different from how I currently live. I was the first to go to college in my family. I grew up to a single mother. We were in poverty most of my life. I was homeless when I was 16. There's things that drive us to do things, and I think my life's journey has really pushed me to want to run for the seat.
And your husband, Brett, and you have 3 sons?
Yes, I have 3 little boys. I have Sam, Caleb, who are twins, and they're 8. And then I have a 5-year-old, his name is Josh. It is funny, every day they say, "Mom, is the general election here yet?" They're learning a lot of lingo that I think a lot of people don't know. They'll say, "Mom, we won the convention. They know about caucus. We brought them to caucus." So they really have enjoyed this journey. I think it's really good for my 3 little boys to see that women are strong and that we're fighters and that we want a seat at the table.
So we're at point A, which puts you right in the middle of a campaign, and point B will be when you are elected in November. What do you hope to accomplish upon your election?
That's a big question. I have a huge agenda. I have at home, I have a line of paper with all my checklist of things that I'd like to do. But number one, I would say, is gun legislation. We have an internship program with 30 young students that are working on our campaign. One of the number one things they talk about is wanting to see gun legislation passed. So I am going to fight to make sure that we pass sensible gun legislation, and that means closing loopholes. When you purchase a gun, you have to have a background check. Making sure there's red flag laws. If you're a domestic abuser, we don't need you to have a gun. It's not safe for our communities. So gun legislation, I want to really tackle with our seniors and our aging community. I think we need more legislators that are going to talk about how are we going to protect them. We know over this last year abuse allegations that were happening, and a lot of them were going unreported. And the ones that were reported were not investigated. And then also looking at, with our environment, how can we make more progress, but also working with Greater Minnesota as we do that.
Well, let's take those in order, and then we'll even circle back and pick up on the education issue, which I know is very important to you. Gun control. Upwards of 90% of Minnesotans favor one form or another better checks on the ability to purchase and utilize handguns, and yet we don't have any effective legislation coming out. Now, I believe that's because the Republicans control the legislature, and there's a hardliner, Kurt Doudt, who's already been quoted as saying he's not going to put any gun control measure before the legislature that has not been approved by the NRA. I almost fell off of a chair when I heard that. And unfortunately, Dario Anselmo, our incumbent, votes for Kurt Doudt, and Kurt Doudt carries that as an agenda item. What can we do to get around the NRA? They can't be in control of government, can they?
No, they absolutely should not be. Special interests should not have a say of how we have action in the state of Minnesota. In terms of passing gun legislation, it's really easy. We need to elect a Democratic majority, and we need people to vote for Democrats up and down the ticket.
That's right, but we're 11 votes short. Now, if we pick up your seat, and we will, then we'll be 10 votes short. But I'm confident, and I suspect you are too, that there's people that are so much in favor of reasonable gun control legislation that's going to be a principal issue in electing more Democrats this fall.
We honestly need to pass this. I mean, we're seeing moms demand, we're seeing our students mobilize. They are going to vote in November, and I will tell you, they're going to vote in a way that for their candidates, and they're talking about it. I was just at an event last night where students from Parkland and students from right here all throughout Minnesota got together, and they were talking about how are we going to get gun legislation passed. They had talked about REV and making sure that people know who they're voting for when they go to the polls this November. And these young people are going to be voting, and they want to see action.
REV, that's Register, Educate, Vote. Tell me, Heather, a couple of specific measures that once you're in the legislature, you're going to push for relative to gun control here and now.
I would say three things. Background checks, number one.
Universal background
Universal
checks.
background checks. When if you buy a gun, you have to do a background check, and I don't care if you're giving it to your nephew, your nephew needs a background check. The other one is red flag laws, domestic abuse. People that have been found guilty of committing domestic abuse should not own guns. And the third thing is an assault rifle, assault ban on AR-15s. There's no need for them. I come from a military family, and there is no need for civilians to have access to these weapons.
I think you're right. I think that's an issue that's in the present mind of most voters, in particular in Edina. And you're active, aren't you, in Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense?
Yes. I was one of the first members to join the Edina chapter, so yes, very proud of that.
You also mentioned that you wanted to work for seniors. I know there is measures before the legislature trying to curb senior abuse. Unfortunately, that didn't go anywhere because the Republicans buried it with a bunch of other policy in a spending bill where they tried to force the governor's hand, and it did not work out well.
Well, just first off, the 950-page bill was
ridiculous.
It was honestly, and it was
and
very
it's illegal.
insulting.
It's unconstitutional.
Yes,
no
and it's not only
about
with seniors. We didn't get anything done on transportation. There was nothing. The opioid crisis, we didn't address that. So there's many things that were missed. But yes, in terms of seniors, I think that this is a full scale. We have to really look at how are we going to handle and make sure that seniors are protected. We have baby boomers that are aging, and I want to see more legislators talk about it. I had somebody say, Heather, I've never heard a candidate talk about this before, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's a problem. In terms of PCAs and people that we have going into homes, a lot of seniors, honestly, on the doors from door knocking, tell me they want to stay in their home. They want to age in place. And so I want to see legislation
Personal
passed.
care attendant, PCA.
Yes, PCA, yep. And I want to see PCAs have growth opportunities. PCAs right now are kind of stunted at a certain level of making this flat amount. I want to see them really thrive in the work that they do.
So as they become more skilled and perhaps have more training, they would receive a higher hourly wage?
Yes, they're taking care of our most vulnerable population, and I think that we need to make sure that we're taking care of them. But there's many other ways as to technology, incentivizing technology to help seniors to stay in their home. I'd like to have a little bit of a survey with seniors to see what other things that we could really help with.
And two other issues I want to talk about or mention. One is environment. I know that you've recently been endorsed by the Sierra Club. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
And you were one of the early supporters for the Edina Solar Garden. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I worked on the Edina Solar Garden with Megan O'Hara, who's R.T. Rybeck, former Mayor R.T. Rybeck's wife. And she is amazing and such an advocate in terms of how do we make our environment cleaner. So we worked together to really enlist about a little over 80 people in Edina's first solar garden, which is being built this fall. I'm very proud of that work. I think community solar is the way to go. It makes it accessible for everyone. People can put solar on their house, but that's very expensive. Community solar is something we all collectively buy into. And honestly, there's no background checks, there's no credit. It's just to say, hey, listen, everybody has access to clean energy.
It's nice. And I know you've got a plethora of issues, but the last one I want to talk about is education, because
Education's huge
the
for
Edina
me.
School System is the jewel of our community. So tell me what you would like to do relative to the Edina School System.
So I'm a therapist. I was a mental health therapist for years. And so what I will say is we need more mental health in our schools. The funding issue, we saw huge deficits in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So looking at how are we going to start helping these schools, looking at why are the huge deficits growing every year. So also in that omnibus budget was some relief for our schools. And again, nothing there.
But there wasn't any new money in it. It was just a transfer of money,
Yes,
as I
but
understand
still anything would have been better
suppose.
than what we have. They didn't get anything. Also, another issue I care about is financial literacy. I want to see more of our students understand how to balance their checkbook, know how to pay bills, understand how much money they're going to make. And the reality is we're not teaching our students this. They're having to learn it in college, and a lot of them are not learning it in college.
What about the enormous student debt that people are under the thumb of these days?
I've been talking with people about this, because the reality is can we incentivize people to volunteer more in areas that we need help, to start doing some school loan forgiveness. I don't have all the answers on how we would do it, but I absolutely am committed. I paid for my own college. I understand that college is really expensive, and a lot of people, especially from low-income neighborhoods, will not go on to university because they can't afford it. And so we have to make opportunities available so that we can help lift people up out of poverty.
I'm just going to read off some of your activities, and I'm going to miss one or two, and you can correct me if I miss something important. But I understand you're either serving or have served on the Edina Education Fund. You're on the PTO Executive Board for one of your son's schools. You've been on the Edina Crime Prevention Force. You've been on the Edina Human Rights and Relations Commission. What have I missed locally? I can't believe you can do this. But
I'm also on the Edina Special Education Advisory Council. I volunteer with the Edina Senior Center. I do this thing called Intergenerational Buddy Bingo that I've worked on, and many things. But the reality is I do all of those things because I care about Edina.
So tell me about your campaign. Is this are you limiting this to just to Democrats to work on your behalf, or are you appealing broader than that?
I am absolutely appealing broader than that, and I think that every Democrat that's running needs to be doing exactly what I'm doing, is making sure that we reach out to our friends that are Republicans or independents and make sure that they know that there's room for them within our party. And again, stable government driven by values is something we all need to be talking about.
I want to read you a quote from the legislative update from incumbent Daria Anselmo, posted on May 24th, 2018, who said, "The legislature adjourned on Sunday, marking a very productive 2 years at the Minnesota Capitol." I kind of did a double take when I saw that, and I compared that to the Star Tribune editorial board one day earlier, May 23, which said, "With vetoes Wednesday of the major tax and spending bills, Governor nullified much of the work of the 2018 legislature, ensuring that this year's session will rank among the least productive in Minnesota annals." I suppose we can debate why the governor was forced to veto those bills, but it's pretty clear to me that there's a lot of politics going on. The Republicans jammed in policy provisions into spending bills, which isn't appropriate at all. Violated the constitutional prohibition against having a bill dealing with more than one subject, and unfortunately the Republican majority, with the vote of Representative Anselmo, allowed that to happen. So we put you in. How are you going to assure us that we're not going to look at an unproductive session?
Well, first of all, I'll just to the omnibus bill. Both parties have done this, right? And the reality is it's shameful. We need to stop doing that. We need to elect people that are, and ask candidates this question. We need to get things done for Minnesota. This shouldn't be about party. This should be about doing what's right. I, commit myself to the things that I do because I want to get things done. It is hard to run for office when you're a mother of 3 little boys. But I truly believe in this work. I believe that the fight is worth it. I believe that the time spent to get things done for Minnesotans, it's about public service. It's not about politics. And we need to elect more people that believe that.
Heather, thank you for taking time off of a very busy campaign to stop by and visit with us. We'll see you again here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Edina, Minnetonka, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.